Hello, dear Starshines. Christina here with Rise of the Multidimensional Human and Light Body Academy. Welcome to today's lunchtime chats. For those of you who are new, my name is Christina and I am an acceleration expert. And we are here to talk about topics and issues that are significant to us new paradigm way showers, star seeds, visionary leaders. Those of us who see the attributes of the new paradigm and what that kind of human looks like, and we embrace those qualities and make it a way of life for us. And in doing so, we're doing our part in creating the new world, the new reality. So the kinds of things that we engage with are very different than the typical human family. And we're here to talk about those engagements. We're here to talk about those kinds of challenges, the ways around them. I do to the best of my ability to provide a liberated perspective to these issues that we face on a daily basis. So today I kind of had a little bit of it's kind of an altered state most this morning, and I realized I needed to talk about some new paradigm keys, some very significant keys that will permanently liberate your consciousness from the matrix. And along with that, also, we'll be decoding some of those Saturn control systems. And then we'll also be revisiting some other really significant facets to our expansion and our consciousness. So welcome everybody. Welcome. I know I was a few minutes late. Hello, dear sister Joanne. We'll give everybody a moment to catch on, to get on board. And once you come on, go ahead, let me know you're here, say hi, and let us know where you're coming from. All right. So this whole thing started, this road that I went down this morning all started from a series of messages that I received from a dear starshine in our group. And she knows, you know who you are. You message me very often, throughout the day and stuff like this. But the most recent thing that she came up with that really I felt like it's important to talk about is she was asking about Reiki and Reiki symbols. And she was inquiring in the way, because there's some thoughts, ideas that have been introduced to her that those two can be control systems. Those two may be hooked into some of those control systems of the old paradigm, connected to beliefs in God and stuff like this. So I thought that was a very interesting question. I know those of you Reiki practitioners out there, you're going to be outraged, like, what? But do hear me out, because there is something to what she's saying, but it's not quite in the slant that it was presented. So I want to introduce an alternate perception of that kind of dynamic. And so I want to talk about that. And the other thing that she was talking about was the same. I think it was the same speaker the speaker was a star seed. She does transmissions, energy clearings, light language, stuff like this. You guys, like one of us. And another thing that she commented on was ancestors, that she considers ancestors as discarnated beings that are caught in the wet matrix, in a matrix of consciousness, and it would not be anything that she would ever be interested in calling upon. Now, this is a very real thing that she's talking about. And this is also why, and I'm going to talk deeper and go much more deeper into that, but this is why it's essential for us to do our ancestral healing, our ancestral clearing, because in the way our DNA dance is engineered, so to speak, we are made to be interconnected with everything, especially the ones that brought us into this reality. Okay, so we are disempowered because many of in our lineage have been hijacked by belief systems, which means when they cross over, they don't necessarily cross over to home, they cross over into another layer of the canopy and in that matrix. For example, I had someone close to the family pass a few months ago. He was an atheist, and he believed when you're dead, you're dead, whatever. And because of the strength of that belief, when he did pass, he finally did take rest in this dead realm, because he truly believed when you're dead, that's it. So he took that forward with him as he into the next life. And so he just went to a dead realm where he got to be dead. Okay. Now you might say, who cares if what my parents or grandparents believed in? The reason why it's significant for us is that, you know, where the state of their consciousness and the grids that they occupy are directly connected to us. We have a very strong sympathetic resonance signature with the DNA of our parents and grandparents. Okay, so I want to pick this apart even more with you guys. And if you have things that you want to contribute and say or ask or whatever, I totally invite you guys to please put that into the chats, because it's really important for us to talk about it. Because in contemplating these questions that she brought to me, this is where I ended up getting this down. Claire, well, I already had awareness of this, but it came in a much deeper level about the main keys of bringing in that new paradigm. And if we truly embrace these three pieces, these keys, and as in adapt it into our way of life, it will literally and it will permanently liberate your that part of your consciousness from the control matrix. So let's start diving in. Hello, dear Starling, Starshine. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hey, Tony. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Leica, here you are. Hi, good to see ya. All right, I think that's it for that. So I'm going to go ahead and start the drawing here. So. All right, so we usually do an activation portion, and then we dive into more deeply into topics. The activation I'm going to do is going to be a little bit different than I've done before, because I want to do it in the language of planets. Okay, so the planet that I want to focus our awareness upon is the planet Saturn. Okay, so Saturn is a planet with rings. It has many moons. It is between Jupiter and Neptune. Okay, but if energetically and with consciousness, it also contributes into our human experience in how we engage with certain flavors of energies. So typical astrology assigns characters to embody archetypes, to embody certain principles. And so this is where we get ideas like Mercury is communication and air, and thought, Venus is love and sensuality and creativity and expression. And then we have our moon, which is our subconscious, and then you have Mars, which is the warrior. You know, we have all these different archetypal stories that go along with our planets. So this is never going to go away, because this is a fundamental truth to our consciousness. It does not matter what religion or spiritual practice you believe in. We are all impacted by what's happening in our skies, the planets. So these planets are weaving a fabric that is like, imagine it like a super fine-tuned mesh netting that is all through our solar ring. And we are, as a planet, moving through this enmeshment of light and consciousness, and that's how we're traveling through time and space. And this is why we experience life as cycles. Okay, so the wisdom of cycles is something that has been passed on to us by Mother Nature and those who understand the movement of consciousness through time and space. So the character we have, Saturn, has a lot of attributes as well. For example, there's this idea of you have a Saturn return, which is between the ages 28 and 30, where upon your Saturn return, this is where you really step up as a human being, responsible yourself, and say stepping up to cut your own mustard in the world, so to speak, right? You learn how to handle your obligations and the things that you need to do to have empowerment and independence and freedom in this life. Now, the irony is that Saturn is structures, and a lot of free spirits consider structures a hindrance to freedom. But that's just a particular kind of relationship to structures. There's a way to have a relationship to structures that actually enhance and advance your freedom. Okay, so everything is relationship here. I'm not necessarily saying Saturn is good, bad, right, or wrong. You have to decide where you are in relationship to the energy that it holds in your life, in your consciousness. So a lot of things that we talk about in these talks revolves around the hijacking of consciousness, the hijacking of our spiritual nature, but also the hijacking of our mental and emotional nature and needs and stuff like this. And even physically we get hijacked. So this hijacking that's been going on, that humanity is very, very interestingly waking up out of more and more and more, means that we are waking up to the players that have been involved in this hijacking, all right? And the players involved go far beyond just some elite industrial group of families and bankers and stuff like this. It's like it goes far beyond that. Right now, mass quantities of humanity is waking up to that whole industrial control thing. The bankers, the big tech, big pharma, you know, the control systems that are out there. But where I'm taking this is far beyond those structures. Those structures are the earthly expression, but these earthly expressions of control start much further out in the nesting doll of our experiences. So it actually starts even beyond our own, beyond our dream time. Well, until you learn to awaken, expand your dream time, and then you're right there at the precipice, or at the moment certain thoughts or actions are initiated. You're right at that threshold, and so you'll know instantly through dream time things that are happening on a quantum or cosmic galactic level. Anyway, so Saturn has had its consciousness hijacked, just like Jupiter. Now, Jupiter is more associated with spiritual teachings and expansion of consciousness, mystery schools, stuff like this. Saturn is associated more with practical life, what it takes to be in a 3D body, in a biosuit. So the kinds of control systems Saturn holds for us as a collective is stuff like our religious practices. Now, I'm not talking about the mystery schools that can be part of religion, the mystical sects. I'm talking about the actual religious doctrine, the stories, the practices, the rituals, the ceremonies. That's what I'm talking about when I say religion. And the another thing that Saturn can control is our medicine, the medical establishment. And I'm going to say, so we'll just say medicinal practices. And then it also is in charge of our communications, our language. Now, I know there's a Mercury thing, so I'm not talking about the traditional understanding of astrology now. I'm adding in these structures are embedded into the Saturn energy that we use to manage reality. Okay, so this is a little bit different. In each of these, the distortion of each of these, some people might perceive as dark lords or, shadow beings, stuff like this. Another thing that Saturn is in managing of, our education system. Okay, our education systems, our military. Okay, whoops. Our governance. Okay. I went off here, let me go and do this so you guys can see. There we go, governance. There we are. Okay, so these are actual structures that inform our human experience, informs our lives, okay? So it's pretty much like a foundational building block to our reality. It doesn't have to, it's not in the form that it is, it doesn't have to be, but these are things that the human consciousness have integrated into our being as an absolute foundation to our lives, okay? So there are reversals going on all these levels. There are manipulations happening on all these levels, like military, obvious, right? obvious one. Governance, of course, is obvious. Education, well, for starseeds anyway, it's obvious. That's the conditioning. That's, teaching certain values that maybe aren't shared by the parents in the household. It's like there's agendas that those get incorporated in that are in the education system. So this is why a lot of people who want to keep their autonomy, one of the major pieces that they look at is taking responsibility for their children's education again, and not handing it off to the system to deal with, right? Of course, our society isn't structured to do that, so not a lot of people have that level of autonomy and ability to be able to do that for their kids, but those who recognize it do, right? So our education system has lots of reversals within it. It's said to, knowledge is power. It educates, the educational system says that, if you go through high school and college, you'll get a good job and you'll have this and you'll pretty much, have everything that you need in life. When those of you, and I know there's a lot out there that know that that's not the truth. I mean, I can't tell you how many college people with bachelor's degrees and bachelor's degrees and master's degrees were working along with me when I worked at Radio Shack, right? It was like, I'm talking about when I was a teenager. All the people working there had college degrees because they didn't know what they wanted to do. They couldn't figure out what they wanted to do with their life, and education really didn't give them the tools that they needed to really, face life in a masterful way. So the education system, it gives us programming that it's important for certain reasons, but once you get out there in the real world, a lot of people realize that's not true. The only ones that it really applies to are people who are staying in the structure, like those who are going to school to become a teacher, or those who are coming to school to become a lawyer or a doctor or an accountant. Then you're getting your educations for a certificate to be allowed to have your practice, right? But all these other more liberal arts kind of educations, it's a different ballgame. And a lot of people get burned. They end up, taking on this huge debt in order to complete their degree or postgraduate degree, and don't really have get a job or get that money returned. This happens all the time. It's so common. So this is just an example of the reversal of our ideas and truly what it's actually doing for our society, right? This is how everything in here is. Language, we imagine language, learning to read and write is something that empowers somebody. Well, it does in this matrix, but really learning a language and learning how to read and learning the different letters and stuff like this, that's actually very limiting to your mind, because the kind of language you speak determines how you think. So if you speak a very linear language, and I've heard indigenous call it a dead language, like English or German or French or Spanish or anything derived from all the romantic languages, all of the languages that are derived in Greek and Latin and I think Roman, stuff like this, it's like it's a linear form of communication, and it requires very limited kind of thinking to be able to convey on that level. I mean, how many of us go into an altered state, and when we speak, words just don't hit it. Words just don't work, and it's because it's linear. So we train our children from a very young age to think linearly, so they can speak, so they can read, so they can have the skill that they need to make it in the world. Okay, so you guys see where I'm going with this. It's like these are deeply embedded programs that are part of our life, all engineered to limit our perceptions of who we think we are, or limit our abilities to communicate, limit our abilities to connect with not just ourselves, but with everything around us. There's a gentleman named Martin Prichtel. I've spoken of him a few times. One of the things I really love about his work is that he stresses the importance of listening and poetry. And he talks about how to communicate in a way where you can bring life, breathe, quite literally life back into a language. And that is speaking in verse, speaking in riddle, speaking in song, speaking in poetry. If every, say, English speaker started to use English in that way, we would quite literally breathe life back into our culture. Okay, we would breathe life back into the way we connect with each other rather than the humdrum, hey, how you doing? I'm great. How are you? Hollow exchange, right? And, so this is the way, I think it's brilliant what he's brought forward around that. So, and this isn't to say every language on the planet is dead, but I'm talking about linear languages. A lot of indigenous languages still have their life, still have their poetry. There's no one direct way to say anything. If everything is said in a either metaphorical or poetic type of way, those are the languages that still have life, as in life force within them. So when they're spoken and shared, the connection between people, the life becomes more vibrant and free, right? So there's the control system language, and then there's the liberated way of language, right? So just an example of the reversal here. The medical system is so bass backwards. I think we're getting a clear idea of that. Because we have a medical system that throughout history we know suppresses cures, like the cure for the common cold, very simple. I think a teacher found it, and then they bought the rights to the medicine, and then they changed the formula of medicine and just said, oh, well, maybe it was more anecdotal, right? So they suppress cures because it's more profitable for the industry to have sick people. They need people to buy medicine. So you have a whole medical industry based on treating and keeping people sick, okay, because for profit, versus a medical industry that was about medicine that truly brings out optimal living, optimal health and wellness, all right? Now, there is a new section of medicine that has been born in the consciousness of man and is out there. I don't want to call any of them out because, our government agencies kind of hunt those people down, but they have cures to cancer. They have cures to diabetes. They have cures to things that they have protocols for all these things, but they have to do it on the down low because they get targeted. And once they're found out, usually they have to run for their lives, leaving the country and never to come back. And this is one of the many reasons why Tijuana is such a hot spot for people to go to, because a lot of those people have been exiled out of our country because of the way they're treating successfully these considered incurable diseases. They're in Mexico. They hang out or they build centers all through Tijuana and different remote parts. So, creating these little oases of healing. So this is Saturn, again, another kind of Saturn distortion to the medical system. If it was in a way that was in harmony with life, we would have truly regenerative medicine as the standard in this society. People would be focused on regenerating themselves, they would really care about optimal living. The kinds of products that we would have in the market to feed our human population would all be in consideration to health and wellness and optimal being, optimal, states and stuff like this. But that, I think we can agree, is the exact opposite of what we have in our society. We have all these labels on our foods. And why do we have labels? Because we demanded those labels be there because we wanted to not buy the foods that have the poisons in them. And then we started using those labels to empower us. But then there was another movement made by FDA and other kinds of agencies, and they create all these loopholes where you don't have to mention certain ingredients on the ingredients list, right? I mean, they now, I think MSG has become such a taboo ingredient for a lot of processed food, they changed the name of it. It's called natural flavoring, right? What kind of system does that? What kind of system has a value, their priority ladder would do something like that instead of, people want to eat healthier. People want things that aren't harmful in their bodies and their food. Let's see how we can do that. Said almost nobody ever, right? Except for people who really care about holistic health, holistic wellness. And during this current shenanigans, the holistic practitioners, they're really getting gunned after. A lot of these doctors that are considered misinformation people, a lot of them have close ties, a long history of alternative complementary care and alternate medicine and stuff like this. So regenerative medicine is a real thing. It's something that people practice. There's something, it really is something that is available for people. They just have no idea, no clue, because they're, in this other kind of program. And I think medical is probably one of the second only to religion as far as atrocities go, because there's a lot of people that will not go against what a doctor says. They have a hard time thinking that what that doctor's telling them is an opinion, right? Instead, they're hearing it like it's an authority. Unless you're, a really strong-willed person, then you're going to be like, yeah, I think I want a second opinion. And then, yeah, maybe I want a third opinion, right? Go doctor shopping. That's what smart people do who are in charge, who feel like they are in charge of their health. They doctor shop. They look for a doctor that they resonate with their thoughts and feelings about whatever the diagnosis is, and they'll go with that kind of treatment. And this is, where a lot of people end up that successfully navigate their healing challenges. This is what they do. Another thing that happens is that the medical establishment says, sorry, there's nothing you can do. You're going to die now. You're 10% chance of living. And they will knock any kind of holistic or alternative treatment that may give you some sort of hope. They will totally demonize it. They'll make it wrong. They'll even prosecute, right? You guys heard now of that story of the Chinese, elderly Chinese man visiting his daughter in Chicago. He comes down with COVID. And he was in the hospital for a period of time. He got to a point on a respirator. They're like, okay, guys, we have to, the doctors were like, we have to be real with you. He's got like a 10% chance of living. You should probably, take care of your affairs, la, la, la. And they would not accept that. And they had a doctor that was willing to prescribe and administer ivermectin protocol into his treatment plan. And the hospital refused to let him in. So they went to court and got an injunction that commanded the hospital step aside, not collude with, but step aside to allow this doctor into the hospital to administer the treatments. Miraculously, this man lives. He comes back from the brink of death with 10% chance of living, right? Does the hospital take notice of this? No. Instead, they pursue the court case. Okay, they want to make sure that they set some sort of precedent that a court can never tell the hospital administrators how to treat their patients again, which is clearly not what he did. He said, step aside and let them get the treatment that they want, right? So there's a lot going on here. People, I think this is the big arena where a lot of humanity is waking up, okay? And this is going to have most of our focus for quite some time. At least a year or two more. Now, religion, this is a big one. And this is how, I think we're pretty familiar on how this gets reversed and reverted. This is the religion, the idea where you are not your own authority. There's a being that is greater and more infinite than you are, that you as a little human need to worship and glorify. And this being passes judgment upon you. This being loves you, but this being also judges you. This being, you know what I mean? Wants you to be, to live a not a pious life, but a virtuous life, yet there's certain rules that if you break, you're definitely not pious, right? Or virtuous. There's all these doctrines and dogmas and stuff like this that pretty much teach us about what our relationship to an infinite being is. So, I'm just boiling it down to the bottom denominator, right? But given the understanding that we know about the inception of our consciousness, we can safely say that every single religion on this planet was purposely seeded by a being claiming to be our creator. Yeah? Okay. With that in mind, there's a reason why that seeding came. There's a reason why they created. They contributed their DNA to create another seeding of humanity, and there's a reason why they handed it down with religious doctrine. And this is because the intent was to actually hold us as a lesser being so they can have reign. Okay, I'm sorry this is going to be upsetting to a lot of people. And I'm telling you, this is with every being without exception that has claimed to be a god or goddess of some sort. Okay, now it's not to say anybody is an enemy here. It's more about us understanding our relationship. We are the ones, because of our programming, we are the ones who are telling us that that's our relationship. As soon as we wake up to a different kind of relationship, that's what it is. No permission granted, no enemies necessary, no bad guy, right? We are waking up and taking responsibility of who we are on another level. Therefore, we shift our relationship to these beings. Okay, so so we have these pieces here, right? Now, I want to get to the main key. All right, there's 3 of them, but the main key that you need to start playing with in order to truly liberate yourself from this matrix, from the control matrix, okay? The big key, guess what it is? Drum roll. Playing sound. Okay, playing with, using, understanding the impacts of sound. It's absolutely essential. Okay, so we have a few comments here. I'm just gonna, just contemplate. Think about why sound is such the big key, right? All right, so dear sister Joanne says, as a teacher professor with 2 master's degrees, I always made less than half the salary as a sister-in-law who went directly from high school into the field of computers. Yes. I know, I made my first fortune in computers. That's definitely when I was way too young to make that kind of money. Of course, I blew it all. But yeah, that was definitely a huge leap with the software era. All right. So then we have Facebook user says, I was lucky to have gone to Montessori preschool and kindergartens. Ironically, that education taught me that I didn't need a college diploma in English in order to write a book. I saved myself $40K in intuition by quitting in senior year. I bartended, served, cooked for a decade. Then I went to massage school, which only cost $11K, and 1 year of time and paid for itself my first year working. Yes, this is it. Thinking out of the box. People who can think out of the box become way more free in their lives. This is absolutely true. This is something I've been trying to explain to my kids. They've gotten a lot of conflicting, my kids are adults now, sorry, so call them kids, but they got a lot of conflicting messages between me and their father, because their dad was kind of like traditional, work hard, put your nose to the grindstone, get educated, he had that traditional thing. And then I was like the very alternative. It's like, no, you make your own path. Your imagination is the limit. Make your own rules, live by those own rules. That's what I taught them. And so they got a little bit of conflicting, but then somewhere along the line, my husband, their dad, he woke up out of the box and he was just like, yes, imagination is the limit. So as soon as he made the leap over to my camp, that kind of like gave the go ahead for my kids to think out of the side of the box. It's like they let go of a lot of the, I feel like anyway, they let go of a lot of the things that were weighing on them, that were maybe facilitating some self-esteem about not having education and stuff like this. Now, I'm not saying not having education is the way to go. I mean, it really depends on the way you think and how you process. Some people really thrive in that environment and get a lot of support. But, I'm speaking more to those, us starseeds, us indigos, us alternative souls that aren't really interested in continuing the matrix of control. We have problems. We stick out like sore thumbs in those systems, right? I figured out school like from a very young age, and I totally did whatever I wanted. It was pretty neat. But I was also coming to school when they were transitioning from analog into computers. So there were a lot of holes and a lot of opportunities for miscommunication and mistakes and stuff like this. So I figured that out and took advantage of it. All right, but let's get to sound. Okay, so language, the sound and languages. Let's go right to the obvious part. The languages There are, I can't remember the authors of these books, but there are a series of books being written by some folks. Some of them were studying Aramaic, some of them were studying Romanian. They were studying some of the different languages of the world. And these different writers with different disciplines end up writing 2 books saying the same thing, which is that the kind of language you speak really determines on how you think. And that means very deep psychological ways. For example, when Westerners talk in English, a Westerner is saying, "That's my hat." Here, how do you like my hat? Right? You put your hat on, you ask someone, "How do you like my hat?" Right? But say in a living language, or in a different kind of language, it would end up, when you put the hat on, you would say something like, "How does this hat wear me?" Right? So it's now the hat is wearing me. So you immediately, at default, have a different kind of relationship with that hat. You actually don't own that hat. By you having it on your head, it owns you, right? It's on you. So just think about fundamentally how that would cultivate the way you think and the way you behave, the way you look at the world, the external world, right? Very, very significant. So there are very advanced cultures that have been on this planet, and there's remnants of them all over the world. I used to call them master built, the buildings that were master built. And these are the ones like the cathedrals that are aligned with the different energy lines, different ley lines and stuff like this. And they were completely in symmetrical proportion with stellar consciousness and galactic measurements, and also then the shapes, the symmetry allowed sound to travel through. And what people are waking up to is that a lot of these devices, a lot of these buildings are sound resonators. And I want to take that even further, that many of them, and I just know this from working with different megaliths and stuff, many of them are actually healing devices, okay? Especially the really ancient dolmens, the ancient megaliths and monolith sites. If they're intact enough, it's possible to turn them on and build a resonator within them, the resonance within them, and bring healing to the physical body. I know it seems like I'm jumping all over, but it's all together. It comes together, I promise. So the cultures that built devices like this did not have linear written words. It wasn't A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D, you know what I mean? It was not a linear language like what we have on this planet. Those cultures, those intellects did not have written language in the form of letters. Instead, they had a written language in the form of symbols and glyphs. Think about what cultures that you're aware of whose language is in glyphs and symbols, right? We have the ancient Asian pyramids, right? There's entire temple complexes with very complex writing on them, or glyphology on them. You have the temples of Egypt. You have the temples in Mexico, in Guatemala, in different areas of South America. Okay, some of the most extraordinary wonders of the world have glyphology all over it. And it was a computer programmer that actually broke the code. He realized that each of the glyphs in certain temple walls, they weren't letters at all. It wasn't like this means that, this is an A and that's a B, and therefore there's a sound that's associated. Instead, what he discovered is that these glyphs that are happening, they actually contain an idea. So you have a glyph, oops, I'm making this wrong. You have a glyph that is an idea. Okay, so here's a glyph. In order to explain the glyph's meaning, I have to tell you a series of understandings. I have to first activate you to the 7th dimensional frequencies of the stellar networks so you can actually begin to resonate with what this particular glyph embodies. And then in that connection on a galactic scale and beyond, you know what I mean? The meaning, when you look at it, the whole concept instantly comes just by looking at this one little thing, right? So glyphs and symbols, those are the languages of the beings that had mastery of sound. They were able to use sound for healing. They were able to use sound for levitation. They were able to use sound to focus and create magnificent kinds of anchoring magnificent kinds of consciousness on our planet. Okay, so sound is essential for us. And how, most importantly, is it essential for us is to start applying sound as our medicine. Okay, because this is going to reclaim the reversal of the consciousness of the medicinal engagement that's been, it's been twisted by Saturn. By us applying sound as medicine, exploring with it, playing with it, using it, applying it, all these different things, we are going to start remapping our relationship to that particular structure. So there are beings that have found sound that break up cancer cells. There's beings that have figured out how to use sound to actually break apart the nanites from Morgellons disease. You guys look up Morgellons disease. The Mayo Clinic has an entire study on it. Okay, these people that have gone from their entire lives being rejected as having a valid issue, are getting redeemed these days because the medical establishment is starting to catch up here. But there are people who've successfully eradicated Morgellons from the body using sound and frequency, using and eradicating Lyme's disease with sound and frequency. Okay, so sound is the big gateway into reclaiming your autonomy, right? And resetting those encodements from Saturn that have been reversed and flipped. You can see how this is a really big deal. So the other thing that comes is our ability to speak and write light language. That's the glyphs, that's the symbols. Light language comes in many forms. Some of it is more squiggly than others. So the thing is that as the more you bring these into your awareness, the more your consciousness is going to expand on a deep subconscious, on a deep level, and these other structures that have been in place in our spiritual and about our invisible world are going to get struck up against. And this is where that idea about the Reiki thing came in. Okay, that dear Leica was talking about earlier today. So about Reiki symbols, are they something that need to get unwound from your system? Okay, because there's somebody who senses that there's a limitation in what they are and how they are. And what I want to tell you guys is that it's not this, as we upgrade out of the old paradigm way of using sound, which is the precursor to shapes. Okay, we are going to bring new and different tones. There's new and different tones in our being, flowing through our being. Therefore, the signs and symbols that are necessary to be a pure expression of those new sounds are going to be different than what we've had before. So consciousness was really locked down when Reiki was discovered. So therefore, the symbols that were associated, I'm talking about the root teachings. There's lots of offshoots, right? There's lots of offshoots of this. But the root teachings, those symbols were what were required for the bottleneck of consciousness that was there. But now that bottleneck isn't there, those symbols need to shift and change. They need to grow to accommodate these other tones, these other frequencies of consciousness that are accessible to us. The same thing goes for the flower of life, Metatron's cube, right? The platonic solids. I know, man. I know. People are going to be freaking out. But for real, just think about it. Just feel into it. What I'm talking about. When we are bringing different tones into our consciousness through our being, the geometry has to change. It has to upgrade because sound creates shape. The sound, the tone, the frequency is the deciding factor of the kind of shape that gets created, right? The kind of shape that gets created. Sound is what decides that. The tone, the frequency, okay? The tone, the frequency, that is what creates these shapes. All right. So for this reason, it's helpful for when we find ourselves on that precipice, of really shifting into something new. For this reason, it's very beneficial for us to visit our spiritual practices without those things that have been tools for us for so long, and experience something with a little bit less structure to it, a little bit less definition to it. Okay, but that means we have to step deeply into our creativity, deeply into the unknown, so we can find, discover, invent something completely new. Okay. Now, the kinds of languages, written glyphs and symbols and stuff like this that have a lot of relevance with the new paradigm energies, consciousness coming in, are things like dragon languages, unicorn languages, fairy languages, okay, different angelic light languages, different star being languages. These are encompassing of that broader spectrum of who we are in that sound, okay? So those are the ones you'll notice how you feel when you work with them versus notice how you feel when you're working within the constructs of, say, Metatron's cube, okay, or the flower of life. So just notice how you feel. The difference in how you feel is very significant. It's not something to overlook. Really pay attention, because that's the telltale sign to everything. That's your compass on figuring out new paradigm versus old, okay? All right, the other thing about these shapes, when you're coming from sound, from frequency into form, right? The shape needs to accommodate the spectrum of sound. But when you're working from under the canopy, going up into the symbol, up into the frequency, in order to access a bigger spectrum, as in you don't already have that spectrum in existence, and you're not in touch with that broader spectrum in the body right now, but through a symbol, tracking into it, you can feel into it and then become, you see what I mean, in connection with this broader spectrum. So in that way, the symbols, the writing they're activating your consciousness. Okay, cool. All right. Okay. Thank you. So yeah, just let you guys sit with that for a second. All right. I'm just reading some of the comments to see what's being here. Does sound come before light? No. So light. All right. Empty. Consciousness is light. So when you are tuning in to the all that is consciousness of this Milky Way galaxy that weaves through everything, it looks, it feels, we sense it like a light, like a light of consciousness. One step in separation from consciousness in the form of a thought form and in the form of an intent, right? In the form of an intent, that intention moves from all that is into a frequency. Now, sound frequency, that's a little tricky because you can have frequencies happening that are inaudible, okay? But we can still look at them with stuff that records sound, with devices that record sound, you know what I mean? So it's still in the spectrum that we can have, right? But yeah, so sound, I'm just using sound because it's really anchored in our biosuit as far as our experience of it. There's frequencies that are just inaudible, which we can still sense with our biosuit, but in very different kind of way. It's just for this particular example, I was using sound. All right. Those engaged with Gregorian chanting are known to have higher immune systems. Yes, exactly. This is what I'm talking about. Yes, exactly. So our sound, our ability to make sound, when it's hijacked by linear language, that means it's set up. We can't express without first activating our ego driver, our linear thinking mind, the part of our mind that operates in the realm of the alpha beta zone, right? When we speak, we go into alpha beta, which means when we speak, we leave the delta theta frequencies, which are the dreamtime alternate states, right? Those are the abstract states. We want to reclaim our sovereignty. Eventually we're going to need to address the way we express ourselves, because the way we express ourselves resonates through our entire body. And if we're constantly in expression of distortion and limitation, our body starts to reflect that. Our body starts to show us this, okay? All right. Hello, dear Facebook user. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hi, Gina Ann. Hello, hello. Okay, so going from sound. How much time do we have left? Oh my gosh, time's just flying by. Hopefully I'm making sense, guys. Please let me know. Please let me know if I'm making sense. So getting to the glyphs. All right, so these symbols, when they're connected to the broader spectrum of who you are in consciousness, when you look at them, they can be very activating. When you draw them, when you look at them, when you sing them, when you color them, when you engage with them and creatively in any way, they can be activating to your consciousness and allow you to expand. Okay. The other thing about sound, and this is a beautiful, beautiful piece that I really, really am so I don't know, I'm very excited to be connected with it in a more deeper way. This is the part that I was super excited about today, is that this is deeper understanding that came to me. And that is, all right, ether, space, our relationship to space, our relationship to quantum. Okay. For eons of time, well, depending on what kind of time measure you're using, for a very long time, religion has been overlaid our access to quantum. Okay. That means you need to be in connection or in some sort of discipleship with another being that's kind of like the master, the guide, the guru, the priest, whatever, right? There's some sort, or even just a spiritual being that gives you permission to access things, right? The idea of that. So after humanity wakes up and reclaims their relationship to medicine and really start living the concept of regenerative medicine as a baseline for their life, they're going to be forever liberated from the medical establishment. So I have to go on this one tangent, okay? Your relationship to the medical establishment will turn into one that you only need in the case of emergencies, like, emergency medicine from car accidents, from falls, stuff like this. Other than that, you don't have any use of the allopathic system once you really truly understand and embrace that regenerative medicine piece, okay? Sound is something that is free, something that you can play with, and any moment, anytime, right? So sound is something that is very, very accessible for humanity. Okay, but this next piece, imagine being in touch with your quantum aspects of who you are and able to make sound, speak that sound, okay? Now you are actually using your voice to transmit things to others that connects them into their quantum levels. Now, this is really triggering if there's a lot of layers here, as in there's a lot of belief systems that they have. There's a permission thing, there's a God thing, there's an initiation thing. You know what I mean? We have lots of layers here. But imagine if more and more of us just speak from the quantum levels of our being and take action from that space. We're going to be leaving those ripple effects. We're going to be imprinting all this on humanity, everything around us. Actually, not even just humanity, even the passive solid objects that are around us also become impacted. So this ability, we need to reclaim our ability to access the quantum within us. Once we do that, we reclaim our mastery, our mastery to create and do things. Okay. And the more we do that, it's just like a work of art. It's just like a song, a sonnet, a play, an experience. When it comes from deep within the person that is the writer, the performer, or whatever, it has a massive, powerful impact on the audience and on the collective. Okay. So really, performance art, that says it all right there. If you've ever been to a powerful performance art event, it's absolutely astounding how moving that is. So us reclaiming our access to our quantum is the next big piece. It's sound, and sound is kind of like the baseline for it all. And the next piece after that is the harnessing that sound for medicine, for healing our world, for healing our space, for healing our plants, our children, our minds, our emotions, blah, blah, blah. And then sound to help us as a vehicle to access our quantum levels of who we are. That's been a big catchword lately, and it's because more people are waking up to it. So if your art came from that place, if you're, if you actually invented things from that place, this is you doing your part to bring in that new world, bring in as that visionary leader, ushering us into the new. If you start, many of us already have started, but if you're just starting now, engaging these pieces, it's totally fine. You don't have to be an expert in anything. You only need to be willing to be present, only need to be willing to pay attention, and be willing to go where you have no idea where you're going and what you're doing. Like really let yourself be a kid, play with it, experiment, see what this does, see what that does. You know what I mean? That's all you really need. You don't need to have any kind of super psychic skills, though that can be helpful, right? So this is a game changer that's coming forward for humanity right now. We recode the reversals that have happened within that Saturn consciousness. We quite literally restructure our entire world on a deep subconscious level. Okay, because Saturn impacts everybody, it impacts all life on this planet. You see what I mean? And so people feel really powerless in these power over dynamic control games of the systems of government and medicine and all this stuff, not realizing that we can totally tweak the architecture that creates those systems. We can do that. We have that ability. We need to be willing to do it, be willing to take responsibility for it. We need to be willing to hear the call, follow the inspiration. That's what we need to be willing to do. And we're doing this because we're all in this together. It's for all life. It's not just for a personal gain. You'll notice that when you go into these places, money, as soon as you start bringing money into this, into the works, like everything starts to go wah, wah, wah. Like things that are small-minded and very personal, to your ego driver, pretty much is like a dampening field on all of this movement. As soon as you step out of that into the greater aspects of your humanity, as in you're here to create and bring a vision forward that many generations of man will benefit from, now you're truly cooking with something, and you are now working in concert with many, many forces to bring something like that forward, okay? That is you stepping up into your highest form of humanity. And that is us stepping up into who we truly are as multidimensional beings as well. So here we are. This is it. Follow. I mean, what's the threshold for you? And step past it. Reclaim your abilities. Yes, I did. I said Saturn. You missed the beginning part of the talk. All of our planets have something to do, weave the fabric of the kinds of consciousness that we dance. And I kind of can go back into it, but hopefully you can watch the beginning. Oh, okay. So someone's mentioning the movie Ant-Man. They put the quantum in front of every world. Yeah, right. So Gina Ann says, the only way you see the lightning before hearing thunder is if you are literally watching the sky, which most people aren't doing during a storm. The lightning is much further away, so the answer is relative. Yes, it is, absolutely. All right, I hear of Saturn being of the Holy Spirit. Yeah, okay, so that term, Holy Spirit, right, so, yeah. Okay, we got to figure out a term of communication because the old paradigm, we had to work with the systems that were given to us in order to liberate ourselves from the material world and to step into the truth of our spirit. Okay, and there's a lot of words, encodements, I want to say spells even within those teachings. Okay, so that's why I don't use any of those terms, because I'm taking something into a very new frequency, a very much broader frequency, and I want it to have much more cleaner resonance with the new paradigm coming in than resonance that it has with systems of the old paradigm. So this is why I choose different language, and this is why I don't say very specific things. I don't use the word divine much, or holy, or God, goddess. I don't use any of those words because exactly that, their connection with the old paradigm and that old structure of what we have mastered lifetime after lifetime to use those structures so we can access our spiritual truth. Okay, many of us have done that, especially if you're here, you've mastered it. You've mastered it at least a few times if you're here listening to this talk. It's like in your soul's journey, you've been the master of each of those places, each of those traditions, each of those mystery schools, and now you're here to put as a culmination of all those levels and all those abilities and all that mastery. And now you're here in this new paradigm to amalgamate the highest truth of those traditions, the highest truth of those practices, religions and dogmas and stuff like that. Pull out the highest truth of what that is and take that as a foundation for you to go and bring in the new, to imagine, to dream the new paradigm into being a reality in your space. Okay, that's my little soapbox about that. Respect is to look again. All right, I'm not sure what that means. All right, darlings, time just flew by today. That's amazing. I really hope that you guys were able to make heads or tails of these pieces I was bringing forward. Sorry, I'm just totally dancing and getting off camera here. Sorry about that. Yeah, just feel into these pieces that I'm talking about. Saturn is a structure holder in our consciousness, and these keys will, once you bring them into your lifestyle and really integrate them into your being, they will permanently liberate you from those control matrices. We're talking about not just walking soul purpose and stuff, but we're talking about optimal well-being, optimal health, optimal nervous system, immune system, you know what I mean? Stuff like this. Now there are paths, there are agreements, there are things within our soul's journey that we do have to pass through. So some of them may be a little bit painful, or there's a struggle to get past, to work through them, to allow them to come full circle. But the more we can free ourselves up from any belief system that we've been trained with, the quicker we can actually step through those pieces. Okay, so I'm not saying that life is a bed of roses. I'm saying that your relationship to whether it being a bed of roses or not won't impede you, right? It won't hinder your movement forward and reclaiming your sovereignty, reclaiming who you are, and doing your part, dreaming the world into being. So that's more to the point of why I'm sharing these pieces. All right, darlings. Thank you so much for being here and listening to this chat. I know we kind of went in some crazy directions, but hopefully it's all landing for you very well. If you guys are interested in reclaiming that dream time, reclaiming the quantum and healing the ancestors. Oh, I didn't get to the ancestor piece. Okay, I did a little bit in the beginning. All right, I ran out of time. So, dear sister, I'll try to address that next time. Hopefully I'll remember. I'll write it down so I'll remember. Okay, so getting back to what I was saying, if you want to reclaim your dream time, reclaim your own bridge into accessing who you are on a quantum level, and quite literally bringing a kind of healing that liberates not just you, but your ancestors and future generations. I encourage you to check out our Quantum Reality Shift program. It's our Light Body 101. It's like the first level in to working with us, and we start introducing the ancestral healing, liberating the consciousness of those in your family that come before you. We work with different energy medicine techniques, feeling, sensing, tracking energy, and we also work with activations, encodements, unwinding intuitive blind spots. And we do this all in a group setting, and that's the Quantum Reality Shift program. I encourage you guys to check that out if the sounds of this really rocks your world and resonates with you. And that's at lightbodyacademy.com. Quantum Reality Shift. All right, guys, thank you so much. If you enjoyed this video and it really excited you or inspired you, I encourage you, please like, subscribe, share with your friends. There's a new algorithm that got introduced at remember when Facebook got shut down for a day? There was a new algorithm that was introduced during that time. And so now all of our numbers are getting suppressed. When I say our, I'm talking about us with the alternative messages, us people who are speaking out and giving secrets away about how to transcend the matrix, right? So your support is always needed, but even more so now because of those algorithms and that suppression. All right, darlings. Love you, love you, love you. Mwah, mwah. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.